celebrating our 20th season. From the college by the lake, meeting the personalities and discussing the issues that affect all of Coeur d'Alene and the inland Northwest. We are the North Idaho College Public Forum. And now, here's your host and moderator, political scientist Tony Stewart.
Today, it is our pleasure throughout the Northwest and our viewers in Canada to introduce to you a new member of the administrative team at North Idaho College. I welcome to the program, and it's a privilege to have him with us today, Dr. Jerry Gee, who has just recently been selected as the Dean of Instruction at North Idaho College. It will be his responsibility to be in charge of administering all instruction at our very successful institution. I asked him to come to the program so we could introduce him to this larger audience that he has beyond the campus itself. Our guest holds a baccalaureate and master's degree in the field of agricultural education from Kansas State University. He also received his PhD from that same institution in the field of curriculum and instruction. Dr. Gee is also the former Associate Dean of Instruction in Continuing Education at Dodge City Community College in Dodge City, Kansas. Before that, he was Professor of Agribusiness at that same institution. He is a commissioned officer in the U.S. Army and the Kansas National Guard, retired. He has numerous memberships, which would take the whole program to go through all of them. He's been very active, but I would list for you as an example that he has been a member of the Board of Directors of the Kansas Association of Community Colleges. He also was a member of the steering committee of the Leadership Dodge in 1991. He is active in religious circles. He has been a deacon and vice chair of the board of the First Missionary Church in Dodge City. Our guest is married, his wife Christine, and he have two daughters aged 10 and 12. Dr. Gee, not only welcome to this program, but welcome to Idaho, and we wish you well.
Well, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
As always, I'm very happy to have our regular panelists. First of all is Janelle Burke, who serves as the law clerk to the 1st Judicial District Administrative Judge in the 5 northern counties of Idaho. And next to her is Steve Shink, who is Dean of College Relations and Development at North Idaho College. And I shall ask Janelle to commence the questioning.
Dr. Gee, welcome to North Idaho College, and we hope that you will find that you enjoy North Idaho as much as most of us do. One of the things that we've all been wanting to ask you is, what is your philosophy with regard to education in general, and then you're going to be a Dean of Instruction, so then in a more specific way, what is your philosophy with regard to instruction? But generally first, how do you feel about education? What do you think should be the emphasis?
Well, I think you've got to look at the history of education in the United States. It's gone through a number of different cycles. The Vocational Act years ago caused vocational education to be a forerunner in high school and secondary ed. And we've seen recently in the last few years where the arts and the sciences, the college prep, have been the primary emphasis. I really believe, and I think I'm going to be correct on this, that we'll see a continuation of the college prep type mentality, but I think in the next few years we're going to have to see an influx of not the old vocational per se, but using the new technologies and training people in some of the jobs that are going to be available that may not require the 4-year college degree. So in the secondary level in public schools, I think right now we're oscillating as to what our real mission in education is, and we haven't hit that happy ground between the person who is definitely college prep material for the baccalaureate degree and those who career goals may be different from that and would like to enter the world of work sooner than seeking the 4-year degree. In relationship to community colleges, I think their mission has just continued to grow. When the junior colleges initially started way back when, the concept was simply that we were going to be 2-year transfer institutions. Vocational education has entered into that and plays an extremely important role in community college education. I think it's grown beyond that now to the point of training and retraining. We see a lot of adult students taking advantage of the educational programs that we have at community colleges. It may be simply for an updating of a particular course, learning new skills, trying to improve their skills to advance professionally. But the community college has got a broad spectrum to include training in industry and businesses and try and meet everyone's educational needs on that freshman and sophomore level or in the retraining type capacity.
Steve Shink.
Jerry, I wonder if you'd take just a minute to sort of compare and contrast your previous institution in Dodge City, Kansas, with, and I know you're still very new here, but you've
Yes.
had a chance to look around a little bit and
Sure
have some idea now of what you've gotten yourself into. How are the two institutions similar, and how are they different?
Oh, they're very similar in a lot of ways. Every community college has got the two-year transfer program. The bulk of them have got good, sound vocational programs. The emphasis on training and retraining and CBI, Center of Business and Industry programs, those are all basically the same. The differences that I see, and I shared this with my wife here a while back, I think the things that I'm seeing at North Idaho College as strengths were perhaps weaknesses at Dodge City Community College, and some of the weaknesses that we had in Dodge, or strengths that we had in Dodge, perhaps NIC is maybe a little weak in. The thing that pleases me a lot is there's no doubt that you've got an excellent faculty here, an excellent staff. They're dedicated individuals. They're here to do the job. And so, with that in mind, there's really not much that we can't do once we set our mind to doing it. Of course, the campus, there's a vast difference in the campus. This is a beautiful setting. It's not the plains by any means. Dodge did have a beautiful campus, don't get me wrong, but this one's pretty special. There's no doubt about it.
A little difference in the shading. Didn't you tell me something the other day about the rainfall in Dodge as opposed to Coeur d'Alene, Idaho?
Yeah, Dodge has been in a drought. They only had about 9 inches of rain this past year, and I've seen more rain in the 2 weeks that I've been here than I saw all last year in Dodge.
Dr. G, I'm going to ask what I like to do is more of a global type question than that's just an area that I really am interested in. And across the United States and around the world, there's great competition, of course, economically today. And many feel that we're moving away from military conflicts more into economic and educational competitions in the future. My question is a rather involved one, but oftentimes we hear such criticism of our educational system, K through 12, and even our higher education, and a lot of the critics are from outside the system. My first part of my question has to deal with what kind of condition do you think education is in this country compared with other parts of the world, and are we in a very sound competitive or process, or do we have some real problems?
I don't think we have some real problems. I think we have some weaknesses. But yet I would hate to see the United States adopt the Japanese system, the German system, or anyone else's system of education. I think there's things we can learn from each one of those systems. I do believe that we may see in the future longer school days, more school days during the year. One of the problems we have, and I'm an educator and have been for a long period of time, and that is it all ties to economics. And we see a lot of really good educators leave the educational system simply because it's difficult in some respects to make ends meet on a one-person salary when you're in education. And that's a problem. That's not the total problem. Another problem that I see, and it's one that really concerns me, and that is that the teachers can only do so much. There's got to be help at home. Parents have got to take an active role in their children's education. And as our single parent numbers continue to increase in our society, I think that has had a direct effect on our education and students' ability to focus on what it is they're trying to do in the classroom when really probably things that are more important to them are happening at home. And so it's all a big circle. But no, we don't need to adopt someone else's system, but I think we really do need to fine-tune some things in ours.
It's really interesting you said that we've interviewed a number of people in this program, students from other parts of the world, and as you indicated, they do have some major differences, but their cultural system is also very different.
That's right. It truly is.
Yeah, I have a lead-up question from your comments that really interested me, and that is, I've heard a number of people in this part of the United States, and since you come from different parts that you'll have access to other information, is that in some cases, some families are saying, let the entire rearing of the children be in the schools, that we're both busy and we don't have the time. Is that overstated, or is that a problem in some cases?
I think it's overstating. I think sometimes the schools assume too much responsibility for the rearing of children. But yet someone's got to do it. And the schools many times are the entity that get that assignment. And as long as we have this type of situation, the schools are going to have to assume that role, but there's probably other agencies that need to assume a greater role in assisting education with the students that are really having the struggles in their lives due to the family situation in which they're in. And it is a big problem, and one that somehow we've got to address as a society, not necessarily as education.
It's not something that one institution of education can do by itself.
No, not at all. It would be a crying shame if that were the case. We no longer would teach nearly as effectively as we do at this point in time.
Janelle Berg.
Well, in building and maintaining a quality education, there are certain components that have to go into that. Would you comment on what you consider to be the role of the faculty, of a building program, of the curriculum, and of the support staff? That's really 4 entities, and maybe you'd want to add some. But the faculty, the buildings, the support staff, and the curriculum.
Of course, the faculty are an extremely important part. Not that they're any more important perhaps than some of the others, but ideally you want to have the best teachers you can possibly get in front of your student population. So it's extremely important that in the selection process of faculty that a number of factors are taken into consideration to try and make sure that the best teachers are there. Along that same line, though, we do not want to stifle faculty creativity. I think it's extremely important, particularly on the college level, that we ensure academic freedom, that faculty members have the opportunity to expand themselves personally and introduce new things into the curriculum and into their classroom without someone saying, no, that just doesn't fit. I think also it's extremely important with the faculty that you enable them the opportunity to grow personally and to be able to have some self-enrichment through staff development, going back to school, whatever it is. When you talk about facilities, they do play an extremely important part. We'd all love to have the best facilities that money can buy, but realistically it just doesn't work that way. I see the facilities here as being very adequate. I think for the most part, educational facilities are fairly adequate. However, I'm seeing a real problem with many of them getting way overcrowded. For some reason it's extremely difficult due to tight money to get bond issues passed, to get new facilities built, and some of them are starting to run down, and some of them are just to their maximum. And that's a crying shame that society is allowing that to happen. It truly is. Support staff, probably the most important person on any educational institution, is the guy that unlocks the door in the morning. Without them, we don't go to work. We've got to have them. They're extremely important and play sometimes a passive role in people's education as well. Sometimes that individual that's there cleaning the building or doing the painting or whatever might be the individual that one of the students feels comfortable talking to, or one of the faculty members. I know I always like those folks because sometimes I just enjoy going down and talking to them and getting maybe a little different perspective on what's going on the campus. And I'm sorry, I don't remember the fourth one.
The fourth one was curriculum. But you sort of dealt with that in a way, too. How important is it to have a curriculum that speaks to a particular need in the community or a particular, a drafted curriculum? How important is that?
It's very important within specific subject areas. I think the thing now is that most of our curricula is well developed other than emerging fields. I think the thing that American education has got to do now is massage it, mold it, and make it better. Add things to it and get rid of some of the things that are maybe just a little bit obsolete, a little old-fashioned, and bring in some of the new technologies, some of the new ideas. Encompass things such as writing across the curriculum, creative thinking, problem solving, multiculturalism. All of those things can be implemented into virtually any curriculum, and I think those are the skills that our students in the future are going to need.
Steve Shink.
Jerry, you talked a little bit earlier about possibly lengthening the teaching day and lengthening the teaching year as changes that may take place in American education in the future. We talk a lot here about collaborative learning and active learning styles, things that mean a great deal to us but maybe don't to the general public. Maybe you want to explain some of those things briefly, but more importantly, I was going to ask, what do you see the way we deliver education today in community colleges 10 years from now? Is it going to be vastly different, do you think?
No, there's going to be aspects that are vastly different. And I think the thing that's going to limit that is finances, truthfully. Ideally, we'd love to have 20 multimedia classrooms with satellite links to any place in the world. Mm-hmm. And when we're discussing whatever it may be, we can beam the class to that point and connect with them communications-wise, have computer software that assists on not only one dimension but 2 or 3 dimensions, whether it's reading it, hearing it, seeing it, all of these sort of things that the computers now have the capability of. But in essence, the lecture, the discussion, those types of things will still be the way most knowledge exchanges hands in the United States. The other things would be great, and they are good, but realistically, most institutions are not going to be able to make that transition within the next few years. 20 years down the road, hopefully some of that stuff has really taken place, but now it's just not happening.
We hear a lot, unfortunately, about deficiencies in students when they exit institutions around the country. Are there a couple of key areas that you think need to be strengthened? You mentioned writing across the curriculum, and that's one of the deficiencies that you hear
right.
all the time, that students graduating from college can't write. Are there some other areas you're concerned about?
I think math is another one. The hard sciences, and when I say hard sciences, I don't mean difficulty in learning them. I'm talking about the true sciences. All of those are going to be extremely important, but they're not only going to be important for the individual that's seeking that bachelor's degree, but I think they're also going to be extremely important for the person who is entering into a program that maybe is 2 years in length. And many times those type curricular subjects are the ones that scare them away. So we've got to be able to incorporate them into the curriculum where they really don't know that gosh, I'm studying physics here in the machine shop. We're not calling it physics, but in actuality that may be what it is. Or in some other curriculum we're studying some pretty advanced chemistry, for example.
I'm going to move into another area, but I did want, before I did that, to commend you. I was very pleased to hear you talk about multicultural programs, because we're really not only diverse society in this country, but with the travel that we have around the world, just knowing that's like knowing a language in itself. And so very, very pleased to hear you address that issue. But also we hear oftentimes, particularly at the legislature, which is also a very important place for us, where the appropriations come from, that there are 3 different constituencies there dealing with educational money, K through 12, the community colleges, and higher education. And sometimes we feel that we're kind of in the twilight zone
Sure.
between the other 2 that are much better known over a historical perspective. Would you take a moment to give us your view of the different role that community colleges have from the universities and 4-year colleges?
I think one of the things that community colleges have going for them that many of the 4-year institutions don't have, and that is the ability to be flexible, the ability to identify specific community educational needs, adapt programs to meet those needs, and do it in a short period of time. The 4-year institutions play an extremely important role in American education. I think the community colleges do also. Some of the things that they do quite well are preparatory work, getting people ready to meet the challenges or the rigors of that 4-year degree. I think that, of course, the normal ones, class size, better ratios to teachers and students. The transition perhaps is easier for students. I think community colleges do an excellent job in that and should continue to sing their accolades in regard to some of those types of things. I see an area where community colleges probably will take the lead over the 4-year institutions, and that's in the training and retraining of people in business and industry. The Extension Service was originally established to do that in the area of agriculture and home ec, and be a lifelong learning type mentality. Well, beyond the extension service, a lot of four-year colleges have not addressed other areas other than the traditional continuing ed type courses. And I think community colleges can really take a lead and do a lot of that between now and the year 2000.
I really hear you saying that with the four-year institutions that deal with upper division work and graduate work and many things that they have to do, that the community colleges is fulfilling another niche. It's very, very important.
I think so.
Do I hear the word partnership almost between how they both?
I think it is. I think it's a real, and it's got to be a solid partnership. You know, community colleges are not research institutions. The research that four-year institutions and graduate level institutions do is very, very valuable to society as a whole. But community colleges don't assume that, nor should they assume that role. Our role is more of teaching and trying to meet the educational needs of the people that we serve. And four-year institutions serve a role that's very important, but is not as flexible and maybe not as community-oriented as what the community college is and should be.
Janelle.
We've talked about programs that would probably lead to a degree of some type, whether it be an associate degree or whether it would be a certificate, perhaps. But we haven't talked about some of the other programs that community colleges have to offer for people like myself who may want to come and just participate in a class. And that's a very important role. Or in a cultural activity.
True.
Or in a sports activity. Can you talk a little bit about that function of the community college? I'll bet you can.
I think I can. You know, really surprising, and I don't know what the statistics are at NIC, but in a lot of community colleges, those are the bulk of the students. The people that enroll for that 1 or 2 credit hour course or 1 or 2 classes in computer science, or it may be in who knows what, history or whatever it might be, who have got this desire to learn something that they don't know something about or to increase their knowledge in an area that they've got an interest. And having taught those types of classes, to me that's about as good as it can get. It really is, having those students in there. Community colleges offer a lot of non-credit type offerings where if someone wants to learn some things that no credit is involved but yet have this personal enrichment, the college can provide those services. And that's important as well.
And you encourage people to participate in those, and
Sure.
I would say you probably have a way to people should call when they're interested in those programs, or they should pick up one of your bulletins and find out what's available.
Absolutely. Anytime, I'll give a plug for North Idaho College now. Anytime they've got any questions, for heaven's sakes, call, and we can sure give them the information that they might need in any of those areas. We sure can.
Steve Sheen.
Jerry, this won't be the most important question of the day, but I can't help asking it. You got on a very good-looking, conservative gray suit here and a pair of cowboy boots.
That's right.
Any culture shock in moving to the area? And while you're on that topic, why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself? I think the people in the audience would like to know a little bit about what Jerry G. likes to do in his spare time and maybe a little more about your family.
Sure enough. Yeah, there's a little cultural shock. There really is. I haven't seen too many Stetsons and boots. Not that everyone in Dodge City wears those, but the area itself is one of the largest beef producing areas in the United States. In Ford County, where we were, there were 23 commercial feedlots. They fed around 20,000 head apiece. So at any given point in time, you would have millions of cattle on feed within a fairly confined area. It's also the home of the second largest beef packing plant in the world. So the boots are something that not necessarily came from Dodge. Remember, my background is ag. And
you rodeoed a little bit, as I recall.
I rodeoed a little bit. I've done a lot of different things. And I've had boots on for a number of years, and it was extremely difficult for me to decide whether to keep the boots on or not. And I decided the boots are Jerry G., so they came with me. My family, my wife and children have joined me already. They're enrolled in school here, and we're making the transition quite well. My wife is enjoying staying at home for a while. She hasn't done that for a number of years, so she's kind of excited about that. And right now we're just enjoying being here and having a good time seeing everything new.
Now, believe it or not, coming from Kansas, there are actually some ski boots in your closet too, next
That's
to those
right.
cowboy boots. Is that right?
Absolutely. We, of course, we had to drive a little ways for it, but 2 or 3 times a year, every year, we as a family went to Colorado and snow skied, and the boots and skis came with us, and we're looking forward just to going up the road a little ways to try them out.
This sounds like a commercial on PBS, but it's not very far here. There's 3 ski areas within 40 miles of this campus, and in addition to that, it's not that far to places like Pendleton, Oregon for the rodeo, so
Yeah,
you may have your cake and eat it too.
Calgary Stampede, and the list goes on and on. That's for sure.
We're getting short on time, but I would like to give you the opportunity too, because this is a large area that this program goes out to, that any statement or comments you'd like to make to our viewers throughout the Northwest and Canada, I'd like to give you that opportunity.
Tony, I really wasn't ready to do that,
Okay.
but other than I think it's extremely important, as I mentioned earlier, that as we take a look at the American educational system, it's easy to point the finger and say, the teachers, the school, they're just not doing the job, and I kind of question the people that point the finger sometimes, that perhaps they need to take a little more active role in the educational process. Make sure when the opportunity presents itself, go to the polling place and actively vote on school issues, realizing full well that many times in states the legislature controls education, at least the purse strings of it. Take an active role in board elections, those sort of things, but more importantly, just be concerned about what their students and children are doing, and take an active part in what's going on in their lives, because school is where they're spending the bulk of their time from about 5 till about 18 years of age. And they need to be attuned to what's going on in that classroom. And I've never met an educator yet that didn't welcome those parents' input and help. I've never met one yet. I guess if they wouldn't, perhaps they're not truly an educator, would be my guess.
You said it very well in a very eloquent way, and what we're indicating not only in the field of education but all fields in life, it's those that are active and doing a lot that bring change and progress, and it's easy to sit back and be a critic. And one great philosopher said the greatest sin that exists is the omission, or I believe one philosopher said the greatest place in hell for those who are religious is for those who sit on the sidelines.
That's right.
So you're certainly advocating people being active. With that, I have to bring our program to a conclusion. Dr. Jerry Gee, the new Dean of Instruction within our college, again, we welcome you to the college and to Idaho, and you'll find the people here very, very supportive of the life that they have created. They're independent, they think for themselves, and that's very healthy. You'll see a very free environment, and welcome again, and thank you for being on our program.
Well, thank you. I enjoyed it.
And Steve and Janelle, thank you for your fine questions. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been our pleasure to introduce to this wider community Dr. Jerry Gee, the Dean of Instruction with Idaho College. We tape this program in April, but it will air at a little later time. Until next week, please have a good week. I am Tony Stewart.
The North Idaho College Public Forum was videotaped live from the studios of Telemedia Services on the campus of North Idaho College for viewing at this more appropriate time. We invite you to join us again next week for another all-new edition of the North Idaho College Public Forum on this public television station.